Archbishop Emmanuel Egbunu calls on Christians to be confident in God and realize their status in Him. Ajayi Crowther University lays foundation for 5 new buildings. Anglican priest in Uganda blames false teaching on the global structure of the Anglican Communion. Hello and welcome to the News on the Hours, brought to you on the Advent Cable Network Nigeria television, ACNNTV. I am Rachel Igbu. Developing confidence in one's status in Christ as Christians gives one easy way to act like Him, knowing how one ought to behave as God's people. This was the assertion of the Bishop of Lokoja Diocese, His Grace the Most Reverend Emmanuel Egbunu, in his weekly series teaching from the book of Peter. He said we are being called out by God to tell His praise, proclaiming the gospel of Christ into the life of lost souls, adding that Christians are chosen to be God's covenant people, called to bear fruit that will abide by Him, and proclaiming what He has done for humanity through praise.
If we do not know why God did all of these things to make us His people and to call us a special possession of His, and to say that we are a chosen race, if we don't know why, we might just go around bragging and say, you know who I am Prince this. No, there's a reason that you may proclaim the excellencies, the praises of Him who called you out of darkness into His marvelous light.
The Anglican Bishop of our diocese, the Right Reverend Dr. Stephen Fagbemi, has re-emphasized the need to be born anew in order to work in the Spirit. According to him, when one's life is touched by God, that life would not remain the same. Dr. Stephen Fagbemi was speaking as a guest speaker at the second session of the 31st Synod of the Diocese on the Niger, hosted by Nobi Archdeaconry. He went further to charge Christians to strive to check the foundation of their encounter with God in order to work in the Spirit. He encouraged the congregants and Christian community to always exhibit Christ-like character and make a difference in their operative environment.
This persuasion is not from Him who calls you. The persuasion to want to run after the flesh again is not from one who calls you. This is not genuine. Therefore, turn back. And the calling, this and all this, walk in the Spirit. We cannot afford to live as though we have not been redeemed. Brethren, if the foundation is weak, the superstructure will show defect and crack. It is important that Christians understand their calling and stand firmly in the gospel of life. And the challenge is that they should walk in the Spirit. I think this is a very important matter for us all. The foundation, I think many times the trouble we have in our church is that so many Christians really have no solid biblical foundation. Many have really not encountered Him genuinely. And therefore, all kinds of doctrines, when they come, keep sweeping us to the right or to the left. We are tossed all over the whole place. And because many have not genuinely encountered the Lord, therefore they are part of the church, but they are walking in the flesh because the journey for them has really not started.
The Ajayi Crowther University has laid foundation of 5 building centers for Anglican community studies at the new Oshogun campus. These buildings are to accommodate the Faculty of Agriculture Extension, Crowther Museum and Archive, Department of History, Center for Museum Studies, and Center for Entrepreneurial Studies, while the university has renovated the only hospital in Oshogun, graded the roads and drilled boreholes, as well as installed solar street lights in the community. The university have constructed about 100 buildings in about 5 years. The higher institution of learning also boasts of more than 600 staff with wage bill of 72 million naira per month without any subvention from anywhere and owes no salary. Meanwhile, the university has also taken possession of the tree to which Crowther was tied when captured as a slave in 1821, planning to build a mausoleum where the remains of Bishop Crowther is to be reburied at his home in Oshogun. An assistant priest in the Cathedral Church of the Holy Trinity, Lokoja, in the Diocese of Lokoja, the Reverend Joseph Samuel Itopa, has admonished Christians to seek Jesus Christ at all times as the disciples of Christ. He gave this admonition during his sermon at the Cathedral Church of the Holy Trinity, Lokoja, where he also said that the response to God's call as disciples qualifies one as a saint. He added that Peter's response to the call of Jesus changed his name and identity. The clergy urge all to avail themselves to God's call, as he is ever ready to accept all who respond to him and will change many things in their life as he did to Peter. And ahead of flight resumption in Nigeria, the Managing Director of Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, FAN, Captain Rabiu Yadudu, has announced that 2 flights will not be allowed to fly from the same terminal within the same time. Yadudu, while addressing newsmen during the weekend, said that new approach was to ensure safety in the sector, especially with the current COVID-19 pandemic in the country. He, however, added that the method will not disrupt airline schedules, but to ensure total safety of passengers. According to him, FAN had informed the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority of its plan, which he said would restrict multiple departures of flights. And still to come, Vincent Inyama gets new club as goalkeeper trainer. These and other stories coming your way after this break. Kindly stay tuned.
For if we know him and we feast and live on his word, and his spirit confirms inside of us, our works will be exactly the same as the works of Jesus. Exactly the same. And Jesus even makes a bigger claim on us. And greater than these will you do. Peter was careful to explain to Cornelius. He said, you all heard the things that Jesus did when he was amongst us. For everywhere he went, he was doing good.
So how come children of the church are doing bad, evil? How come? How come? Where did we learn that from? How come we segregate? How come we steal, we cheat, we lie? How come we are following men and not following God? How come our focus is what we can get, not what God can give? Where did we learn that from? Our faith is in God, in Christ, baptized by the Holy Spirit, that we may do good works.
And thanks for staying tuned. For more on our top stories, please visit our website at ACNNTV.com or our social media platforms on Facebook.com or YouTube.com/ACNNTV. And to be up to date with our news and other programs, download the VM Africa app from Android and iOS stores. And now to the international scene. The assistant to the Archbishop of the Anglican Church of Uganda for International Relations, the Reverend Canon Dr. Alison Barfoot, has blamed the menace of false teaching in the global Anglican Communion and poor governing structure of the global church. Canon Dr. Barfoot was speaking as the preacher at a GAFCON service in the Church of Uganda, presided over by the Primate of Uganda Anglican Communion, the Most Reverend Stephen Kazimba. She reiterated that the lack of good structure has allowed false teaching to filter into highest levels of the communion.
I'm here to tell you that there's another global pandemic that's going on in the world. It's been going on for at least the last 25 years, and it's a pandemic within the global Anglican Communion. And that pandemic is the pandemic of false teaching. False teaching. And the flip side of that pandemic is inadequate or poor governance structures that have been unable or unwilling to contain that virus of false teaching. And so this virus has spread like a pandemic, the virus of false teaching, and there is no governance structure in place that can deal with it. Now, sadly, the virus has reached the highest levels of the Anglican Communion. The solution to a different gospel is the true gospel, because a different gospel is no gospel.
A priest with the Anglican Church in North America, the Reverend Dr. Charles Elanson, who recently released a book titled Love Me, Love My Wife, has taken out time to share with the Christian community what it was that motivated him to write in such an inspiring book. During an online chat with a media outfit called Virtue Online, Reverend Charles revealed that he was motivated, especially during this time of the coronavirus, when some Christians are in doubt about being Christians and how essential it is to go to their local church.
Is the idea that I can be a Christian without being a part of the church, without going. Now, this is said by a variety of people. Some who are actually in churches, but just don't think it's that important, but they know they should do it kind of, but don't know why. But an increasing number, even here in the middle of the Bible Belt, of people who have been in churches, have walked away for a variety of reasons and say, well, I'm still a good Christian, I don't really need the church. So I'm writing it first for that audience, but then also for people who are engaging this increasing number of Christians who say, I don't need the church. Almost everyone has multiple Christian friends who are in that category. So that was my motivation. Actually, I guess it's the second one, and that is over the last 20 years, as I've studied the scriptures, I've realized more and more how central the idea of the church is to everything that involves the gospel. Of course, grew up loving the Bible, thinking it was important to go to church, but not having any rationale for it other than I should. So as I've studied more and more, God has really impressed upon me that the scriptures speak everywhere about the significance of not just having faith and being an individual believer, but being a part of the body.
The book titled Love Me, Love My Wife, written by Reverend Dr. Charles Elanson, is a book that speaks on 10 reasons why Christians must join a local church, and it can be purchased online on Amazon. In one of the 8 attacks on Christians since the COVID-19 lockdown was partially lifted in India 2 weeks ago, a mob of about 150 people in the southern state of Telangana dragged a pastor into the street and beat him while he was praying for a sick person. According to the pastor, Suraj Rao, a church planter, who spoke to a US-based Christian persecution watchdog named International Christian Concern about the attack on him in Kolonguda village, the mobs kicked him like they would kick a football. Local Christians told ICC that Rao arrived at the sick person's house around 9:30 a.m. that fateful day for prayer. Soon after that, the house was surrounded by a mob of nearly 150 people, led by a man identified as Ashok. The attackers accused Rao of illegally converting Hindus to Christianity, saying that India is a Hindu nation and there is no place for Christianity. Despite the attack, Rao showed great faith in kingdom service, saying he is aware of the cost of serving Jesus in remote villages such as Kolonguda, and is prepared for this kind of eventualities. The International Christian Concern said it has recorded at least 8 separate attacks on Christians in 2 weeks, following the partial lifting of the nationwide coronavirus lockdown. One of the world's largest network of evangelical churches has expressed concerns over Israel's plans to claim sovereignty over large areas of the West Bank, a territory that is home to millions of Palestinian Arabs and over 400,000 Jewish Israelis. The World Evangelical Alliance, WEA, a global organization of evangelical churches that represents more than 600 million evangelicals worldwide, has joined a chorus of critics from across the globe who are speaking out against Israel's plans to annex parts of the West Bank. The alliance issued a statement through its Secretary General, Bishop Ephraim Tenjaru, saying that while the organization recognizes the right of self-determination by any nation and the right of any nation to defend itself from harm, the alliance expresses deep concerns over plans for Israel to annex large areas of the West Bank. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu promised his supporters during his election campaign to extend Israel's sovereignty over areas in West Bank where Jewish settlements exist. The West Bank, located between Israel and Jordan, was captured by Israel in the 1967 Six-Day War, but was never fully annexed by Israel, though it has been controlled by Israel for over 50 years. And now to sports story. Ex-Super Eagles goalkeeper Vincent Enyama has joined Irish club De Cruz as their goalkeeping coach. Enyama's appointment was confirmed in a statement on the French club's official website. Irish club De Cruz is a national three-team player in the 5th division. Enyama, who is 37, will be in charge of their reserve team and the under-16s. According to the official statement, Vincent Enyama, ex-Nigerian international winner of the Cannes 2013 and former goalkeeper of the Lille from 2011 to 2018, will take in charge of the specific goalkeeper on the training pool from reserve to under-16. And that's it on the News on the Hour. Thanks for watching. I am Rachel Ibunu.